What if I told you that your entire future, your confidence, your career, your sense of purpose, comes down to one habit? Not luck, not intelligence, not connections. Just this. The decision to learn something every single day. That's it. That's the edge. Because while most people wait for life to teach them through pain, the top 1% choose to learn with intention. They study, reflect, and grow long before the world forces them to. And that's the mindset we're exploring today. You see, in a noisy, fast-moving world, the real advantage isn't being louder, it's being wiser. It's choosing to be a student of life, always. Not just when it's convenient, not just when it's trendy, but especially when no one's watching. That's what separates those who rise quietly from those who stay stuck loudly. And this isn't just theory, it's Stoic philosophy in action. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, still reminded himself daily, "You have to assemble your life yourself, action by action." And that begins with a learning mindset. Lifelong learning isn't about reading 100 books or collecting degrees. It's about staying open. It's about admitting that you don't know everything and being excited by that. It's about walking into each day with the humility to say, "Teach me something about myself, about others, about how to live better." Because when you approach life that way, everything becomes a teacher. Failure, discomfort, silence, even boredom. And that changes everything. Most people stop learning once they leave school. They think they've graduated from growth. But if you look at anyone who's built something meaningful, who's developed real inner strength, they never stopped being students. They studied their mistakes. They read deeply. They questioned their beliefs. And they used that knowledge not to look smart, but to live better. This mindset rewires how you approach everything. It turns setbacks into lessons. It transforms ordinary days into opportunities. And it builds a kind of inner resilience that doesn't shake every time life throws you something new. Because your identity is no longer built on what you already know, but on your willingness to keep learning. So I'll leave you with this question. Are you showing up each day as a student of life, or just going through the motions hoping things improve? Because the moment you choose to learn with intention, you begin to separate yourself from the crowd, quietly, consistently, powerfully. The power of reading for personal growth. Most people think reading is just a habit of the intelligent, but the truth is, it's the reason they became intelligent in the first place. Books are not entertainment. They are compressed decades of insight, pain, progress, and wisdom, distilled into a few hundred pages. And the moment you take reading seriously, you start borrowing the minds of history's greatest thinkers. Imagine sitting across from someone who spent 40 years mastering their craft and learning what they know in just 4 hours. That's the gift of reading. The Stoics valued this deeply. Seneca once said, "We should hunt out the helpful pieces of teaching and embody them in our lives. Not just read them, live them." In Stoicism, reading isn't about information overload. It's about transformation. A single sentence, if it hits at the right time, can reroute your mindset forever. That's why it's not about how many books you read. It's about the quality of what you take from them and whether you apply it. But here's where most people get stuck. They read passively. They consume page after page, hoping the words will somehow change them. But growth doesn't work that way. Real reading is active. It's a dialogue. You argue with the author. You underline the sentence that punches you in the gut. You stop and ask yourself, how does this apply to my life? Where am I failing at this? That's when reading becomes a tool, not an escape. In a world of constant noise, reading also sharpens your focus. It pulls you out of the chaos and drops you into a single, uninterrupted stream of thought. That alone is a superpower. While others are distracted, you are training your attention. While others chase dopamine, you are developing discipline. And the best part? The more you read, the clearer your own thinking becomes. You start speaking better, writing better, making decisions with more clarity and less emotion. And let's be honest, most people don't read. Not seriously, not deeply. They scan headlines and scroll through captions, but they rarely sit with an idea long enough to let it change them. That's your edge. In a world of skimmers, be a digger. Go deeper. Reflect longer. Let the words shape you, not just impress you. So the next time you pick up a book, don't ask, "How fast can I finish this?" Ask instead, "What part of this will stay with me forever?" Because that's what reading really is. It's not about finishing chapters. It's about rewriting your character. Consistency and the magic of daily habits. Everyone wants big results, but almost no one is willing to show up when it's boring, when it's quiet, when no one is watching. That's where the real work lives. Success isn't found in sudden bursts of inspiration. It's found in what you do every single day, especially when you don't feel like it. Consistency is not about intensity. It's about identity. When you do something daily, you're not just building a habit. You're becoming the kind of person who does it without negotiation. The Stoics were masters of this principle. They didn't believe in waiting for motivation. They believed in action. Daily, deliberate, disciplined action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I am rising to do the work of a human being.'" That wasn't poetry. That was a reminder, a ritual. Because he knew that greatness isn't found in grand moments. It's hidden in the repetition of small, purposeful acts. But here's the trap most people fall into. They want results without rhythm. They want change without the grind. So they start with excitement, but they don't stick with it. And every time you quit on something that mattered, you train your brain to give up faster the next time. That's why consistency matters so much. It builds trust with yourself. Every small action is like casting a vote for the person you want to become. And over time, those votes add up. Think of brushing your teeth. You don't skip it because you're tired. You don't need motivation for it. You just do it because it's part of who you are. That's what your habits should feel like, whether it's reading, exercising, journaling, learning. Make it automatic. Remove the decision. Make it non-negotiable. Because when something becomes who you are, it stops being hard. It just is. And that's where the magic happens. Tiny steps, done consistently, create massive change. Not immediately, but inevitably. That's the part most people don't understand. They look for hacks, shortcuts, fast results. But you take the longer path, the solid path, the one that may not be flashy but is guaranteed to work if you stay on it long enough. So ask yourself, what's one small action you can repeat every day that would change your life if you stuck with it for a year? Start there. Stay there. Because your future isn't shaped by what you do occasionally. It's shaped by what you do consistently. Deep focus. How to eliminate distractions and get things done. In a world that constantly demands your attention, your ability to focus is a superpower. Think about it. Every time you sit down to work, your mind is at war. One part wants progress, the other wants comfort. And comfort today often means distraction. Checking your phone, scrolling through nonsense, responding to things that don't really matter. But here's the truth. If you can train yourself to enter deep focus, even for short periods of time, you'll outperform most people who are always busy but rarely effective. The Stoics knew this battle intimately. They weren't distracted by the chaos around them. They trained themselves to master the chaos within. Epictetus taught that we should guard our attention like a fortress, because what we allow in shapes our entire inner world. And modern life? It's an invasion. Notifications, opinions, ads, noise. None of it improves you. It just scatters your energy and leaves you drained. Focus isn't just about productivity. It's about protecting your mind from becoming fragmented. Real focus starts with intention. It's sitting down and deciding, this matters right now. Nothing else does. But that decision requires discipline, because focus is uncomfortable. It means delaying pleasure. It means not reacting. It means choosing the hard thing when the easy thing is just one click away. But once you push through that discomfort, something changes. Time slows down. Your thinking sharpens. You get into flow, and in that state, you can accomplish more in 1 hour than most do in a day. But let's be clear, deep focus doesn't just happen. You have to create the environment for it. You need space, silence, simplicity. You need to close the door, turn off the noise, and tell the world, not now. That single boundary can transform your output. It's not about being a machine. It's about being a human who chooses presence over distraction, who chooses depth over speed, who chooses excellence over noise. And over time, this focus becomes your edge. While others drown in distraction, you're calm, centered, moving with purpose. That's rare. That's powerful. Because the ability to focus deeply is the foundation of mastery. And without it, even the most talented mind stays average. So the next time you're tempted to check your phone for the 5th time in 5 minutes, pause. Ask yourself, is this helping me or stealing from me? Your focus is your future. Guard it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Self-discipline, the hidden driver of high performance. Everyone talks about motivation. Few talk about discipline. But when the excitement fades, when no one's cheering, when the path gets boring or hard, it's discipline that decides who keeps going. It's not loud. It doesn't care about how you feel. It's the quiet force that shows up every single day and does what needs to be done, whether the mood is there or not. And the people who win in the long run, they don't rely on being in the mood. They rely on being disciplined. Self-discipline is the foundation behind every kind of excellence. You can have goals, ambition, talent, even vision, but without discipline, it all falls apart. That's what makes it powerful. It's the glue between who you are and who you want to become, and yet most people avoid it. They think it's restrictive. They think it takes the fun out of life, but that's the illusion. Because the truth is, discipline doesn't limit your freedom. It creates it. The Stoics understood this at their core. They didn't see discipline as punishment, but as training. Training the self to remain steady when life gets unstable. Training the mind to control desires, to stay on course, to resist what's tempting but meaningless. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In other words, if you can't say no to yourself, you'll always be controlled by something else, whether it's comfort, cravings, laziness, or fear. Look around. Most people chase short-term pleasure at the cost of long-term peace. They sleep in, procrastinate, indulge, delay, then wonder why they're anxious, lost, or stagnant. But the disciplined person, They rise before they want to. They work when it's hard. They follow through when no one's watching. And that repetition becomes identity. Over time, it builds something stronger than motivation. It builds trust in yourself. And when you trust yourself, you move differently. You stop waiting. You start leading. But discipline doesn't mean being perfect. It means being consistent. It means forgiving yourself quickly when you slip, then returning to the path with stronger resolve. It means doing what's right, not what's easy. And yes, it means sacrifice. But every sacrifice for the right reason becomes strength. It's choosing to endure a little now, so you don't regret everything later. So the next time you're faced with a choice, to push forward or to give in, remember this: discipline is rare, and because it's rare, it creates value. Every time you act with discipline, you rise above the average. You separate yourself from the noise. You become someone others can count on, not just because you're talented, but because you're reliable. And in a world that celebrates what's easy, being disciplined is your competitive edge. Unshakable confidence. Build it and own any room. Confidence isn't about walking into a room and thinking you're better than everyone else. It's walking in without needing to compare yourself to anyone at all. It's that quiet inner strength that says, I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I don't need to prove it to you. I've already proven it to myself. And the secret is, real confidence doesn't come from hype or affirmation. It comes from self-respect. And self-respect is earned through discipline, consistency, and keeping your promises to yourself when no one's watching. Most people think confidence is a personality trait, that you're either born with it or not. But that's wrong. Confidence is built. It's a result, not a gift. It grows when you challenge yourself, when you do hard things and survive, when you fall, get up, and keep going. Every time you push beyond fear or hesitation, you earn a little more of it. And over time, that becomes unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. The Stoics taught this beautifully. They didn't seek attention or validation. They focused on inner mastery, on character. Marcus Aurelius didn't walk around trying to impress people. He was a Roman emperor who wrote reminders to himself like, "Don't waste time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's confidence. It's action without performance. It's presence without ego. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They attach their confidence to things they can't control. Their looks, their success, their status. But what happens when those things fade or change? Their confidence crumbles. That's why real confidence must be rooted in something deeper, in your values, in your effort, in your preparation. Because those things don't disappear when life gets messy. And the more you act in alignment with your values, the more solid you feel. You stop overthinking. You stop second-guessing. You show up as yourself, not a version designed to please or impress. That's when people start to notice you, listen to you, follow you. Not because you're loud or charismatic, but because you're real. And real is rare. If you want to build confidence, stop chasing it. Build habits that make you proud. Keep the promises you make to yourself. Speak less, do more. And remember, confidence isn't the loudest person in the room. It's the one who doesn't need to prove anything, because their actions already speak. Think and act like the top 1%. What separates the top 1% from everyone else isn't luck, intelligence, or connections. It's the way they think. And more importantly, the way they act on what they think. While most people react, the top 1% respond. While most chase validation, they chase truth. And while most wait for permission, they create their own path. It's not magic, it's mindset. A mindset built on clarity, discipline, and execution. See, average minds follow trends. Exceptional minds question them. The top 1% don't get pulled into distractions, gossip, or drama. They understand that attention is a currency, and they guard it like gold. Their thoughts are intentional, not reactive. Their decisions are based on principle, not pressure. And when something doesn't align with their goals, they walk away. No drama, no apology, just focus. The Stoics lived like this. They didn't waste time proving they were right. They trained their minds to be still while the world spun around them. They made decisions based on reason, not impulse. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that most things are outside of his control and that his job was to master his responses. That's the same mindset the top performers live by. They don't waste energy trying to control everything. They control themselves. But it's not just about how they think, it's how they act. The top 1% don't just dream, they do. They don't spend their time wishing they had more time. They spend their time using it. They don't sit around waiting for the perfect conditions. They move decisively, consistently, deliberately. That's what creates momentum, and that momentum separates the committed from the curious. Here's the truth. If you study how successful people live, you'll find patterns. They rise early, not to prove a point, but to buy back silence before the noise starts. They read, not just for pleasure, but to sharpen their mind. They say no more than they say yes. They build routines, guard their energy, and execute with clarity. They don't try to be everywhere, they try to be excellent somewhere. So ask yourself, are your actions today aligned with the life you claim to want? If someone observed you for a week, would they say you're preparing for greatness or procrastinating on it? Because thinking like the top 1% is step one, but living it, that's what really sets you apart. Relentless action, how to execute every single day. Ideas are everywhere. Execution, that's rare. Most people talk about what they want, they plan, they prepare, they wait for the right time, the right feeling, the perfect energy. And while they're busy waiting, someone else, less talented, less experienced, maybe even less ready, is out there doing the work. That's the difference between those who get results and those who just repeat goals every year. The winners move, they act, they execute relentlessly even when they don't feel like it. Relentless action isn't about being perfect, it's about being in motion. It's choosing progress over paralysis, because action creates clarity. When you move, even a little, the fog starts to lift. You see what works, what doesn't. You adjust, you learn. But when you sit still and overthink, everything feels bigger than it is. Doubt grows, fear multiplies. The problem isn't that you don't know what to do, it's that you're not doing what you already know. The Stoics believed in this deeply. Epictetus taught that philosophy is not something to talk about, but something to live. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it, he said. That means you don't wait to feel courageous. You act courageously. You don't wait to feel disciplined. You do the disciplined thing. And little by little, the action rewires the emotion. You start becoming the person you were trying to feel like. Not because you waited for the motivation, but because you moved first. Most people confuse activity with productivity. They stay busy, but not effective, scrolling, replying, multitasking. But relentless action is about doing what matters most, even when it's boring, repetitive, or unseen. It's waking up and attacking your highest priority, not hiding in fake work. It's the art of showing up when it's hard. Not once, not sometimes, but every single day. And yes, you'll have days when you're tired, distracted, overwhelmed. Everyone does, but relentless people act anyway. They don't make excuses. They make adjustments. They don't hope for momentum. They create it. Not by talking, not by visualizing, but by doing. Small steps, repeated, without drama, without applause. And that kind of quiet consistency, it builds unstoppable momentum. So here's the real question. What would your life look like if you simply did what you said you would do? If you became the person who follows through no matter what? You'd be shocked how quickly your results would compound. Because in the end, it's not the smartest, loudest, or most inspired people who rise to the top. It's the ones who move relentlessly. Mental toughness. Train your mind for success. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your mind breaks under pressure, none of it matters. Life will test you. It will throw delays, failures, rejections, and unfair moments your way. And when that happens, most people collapse. They take it personally. They slow down. They quit. But the mentally tough, they don't crumble. They adapt. They don't waste time asking, why me? They ask, what now? Mental toughness isn't about being emotionless. It's not about pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's about having the inner strength to stay in control, even when nothing around you is. It's about learning to respond instead of react, to endure discomfort without panic, to face setbacks without losing momentum. And that kind of strength? It's trained, built, earned, one hard moment at a time. The Stoics were masters of this. They didn't seek comfort. They trained for adversity. Seneca practiced voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor, wearing rough clothes, not to punish himself, but to remind himself, I can handle less than I have. I can endure more than I fear. That mindset doesn't make you weaker. It makes you fearless. Because once you've seen yourself survive the hard things, the easy things no longer scare you. Mental toughness grows when you stop trying to avoid pain and start building the capacity to carry it. When you realize that resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you build by leaning into resistance instead of avoiding it. Every time you choose to stay calm in chaos, to keep working when you're tired, to stand back up after you fall, you're training your mind to be stronger than your circumstances. But here's the catch. Building this strength means embracing discomfort. It means saying no to the easy way out. It means choosing discipline over drama, purpose over emotion, action over excuse. And that choice, it's not made once. It's made daily, in small, quiet moments when no one's watching. That's where toughness is forged. So ask yourself, when life gets heavy, what do you fall back on? Fear or focus, excuses or effort? Do you let the outside world control your inner state, or do you stay rooted no matter the storm? Because the most powerful people aren't the ones with the smoothest path. They're the ones who kept moving when it would have been easier to stop. Mastery, how to become the best at what you do. Mastery isn't a destination, it's a way of life. It's not about reaching some final level where everything feels easy. It's about choosing to go deeper every single day, when most people are content with good enough. And that's what separates the average from the exceptional, the willingness to repeat the basics until they look like magic, the commitment to refinement, to precision, to small improvements that stack up over time until your skill becomes undeniable. The truth is, most people never get close to mastery, not because they don't have the potential, but because they quit too soon. They get bored. They chase novelty. They move on the moment things stop being exciting. But mastery demands the opposite. It demands boredom, repetition, discipline. It's the art of doing the same thing thousands of times, not just to get it right, but to never get it wrong. And that kind of excellence, it's not glamorous, it's not viral, it's usually invisible until it isn't. The Stoics understood this. They weren't interested in being impressive for a moment. They wanted to be strong for a lifetime. They practiced daily rituals, reflection, journaling, simplicity, not because those things were exciting, but because they were effective. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations for the world. He wrote them to keep himself sharp. That's what mastery is, a private contract with yourself, a personal standard that doesn't depend on applause. And make no mistake, mastery doesn't just apply to skills, it applies to character, to your thoughts, your reactions, your values. When you master your craft, yes, you become excellent at what you do. But when you master yourself, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Because now, you're not just talented, you're focused, composed, and in control. That's rare, that's power. But here's the hard truth. Mastery takes time, years, sometimes decades, and in a world addicted to shortcuts, that's a tough sell. But if you can fall in love with the process, if you can show up and refine your edge every day, without needing external validation, you will become the kind of person who's impossible to ignore, not because you say you're great, but because your work proves it. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped dabbling and started dedicating? If you chose one thing and gave it your full focused effort for the next 5 years, that's where mastery begins. Not in grand gestures, but in quiet, consistent obsession. The 1% rule, tiny improvements, massive results. Everyone wants change, big, fast, noticeable. But real transformation rarely looks dramatic in the moment. It's subtle, quiet. It's what happens when you improve by just 1%, again and again and again. At first, no one notices, not even you. But over time, those tiny improvements stack, they compound, and suddenly you've created results that look impossible to everyone who wasn't paying attention. That's the 1% rule. And it might be the most powerful principle you're not using. Most people underestimate the value of small gains. If they don't see instant results, they give up. If a habit doesn't feel life-changing after a week, they abandon it. But the truth is, small improvements are the foundation of greatness. They're what separate amateurs from masters, not the big breakthroughs, but the small choices, repeated, refined, and done with intention. Think about it like this. If you improve by just 1% a day, you don't just get 365% better in a year. You get over 37 times better because of the power of compounding. But the catch is, you have to be patient. You have to be consistent. You have to fall in love with progress that doesn't impress anyone, yet. The Stoics practiced this without calling it by name. Their focus was on daily action, on doing the next right thing, even when it felt insignificant. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to focus on what was in front of him with clarity and presence, not with drama or ambition, because he knew that excellence is built moment by moment, not in some far-off event. The 1% rule isn't just about performance. It's a mindset. It's choosing to believe that small steps matter, that showing up counts, that a few extra reps, a few better decisions, a few more moments of presence can change the trajectory of your entire life. And most of the time, it's not about doing more. It's about doing it slightly better, 1% more effort, 1% more focus, 1% more follow-through. That's it. And the beauty is, this mindset can be applied to anything: fitness, finances, focus, communication, leadership. You don't need to make giant leaps. You just need to take consistent, intentional steps. And eventually the gap between you and everyone else becomes so wide, they won't know how you got there. So ask yourself, what area of your life are you 1% away from a breakthrough? Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for motivation. Just start. Improve by 1% today, and watch what happens when you stop trying to be extraordinary overnight and start becoming unstoppable over time. Your competitive edge. Stay ahead for life. In a world where everyone is rushing, copying, and chasing the next big thing, the real advantage belongs to those who slow down and go deep. Your edge isn't in doing more, it's in doing what matters better. It's in thinking clearly when others react emotionally, in being consistent when others burn out, in making moves rooted in purpose while others drift with the trends. That's how you stay ahead, not just for a season, but for life. Staying ahead doesn't mean racing harder. It means seeing what others miss. And you can only do that when your mind is trained, your habits are strong, and your focus is sharp. That's what you've been building, through learning, through reading, through relentless action and self-discipline. These aren't just good habits. They're the foundation of a mindset that makes you untouchable over the long term. While others sprint and stumble, you're walking with purpose and winning with time. The Stoics had no interest in keeping up with anyone. They aimed to master themselves, and in doing so, they became timeless. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The edge, then, isn't found in speed. It's found in clarity. Clarity about what matters, about how to use your time, your mind, and your energy in ways that produce depth, not just noise. So many people are reactive. They respond to pressure, to opinions, to fear. But those with a real edge, they respond to principle. They're not chasing what's popular. They're building what lasts. They're not trying to win this week. They're preparing to win for the next 10 years. And that kind of thinking, that kind of discipline, it's rare. That's why it works. But here's the truth. Staying ahead isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment. A decision to keep learning when others stop, to keep refining when others get lazy, to stay grounded when others get distracted. It's what you do when no one's watching. It's how you live when there's no applause. That's what builds a future that no one can take from you. So now the question is simple. Are you willing to be that person? To keep showing up, sharpening your edge, and outlasting the noise, not just for a quick win, but for a life of impact? Because if you are, then you're not just staying ahead of the crowd. You're becoming the kind of person the crowd eventually follows. You don't need to outshine anyone. You just need to outgrow who you were yesterday. That's how you stay ahead, quietly, steadily, intentionally. While most people are busy chasing validation or shortcuts, you're choosing a different path. The path of learning, of clarity, of self-mastery. And that choice doesn't just change what you achieve. It changes who you are. Because at the heart of this episode is a single truth. The greatest investment you can ever make is in your mind. Not once, not when it's convenient, but every single day. Through deep learning, focused action, discipline, and reflection, you sharpen yourself. You rise, not by accident, but by decision. And with time, that decision compounds into something unstoppable. So wherever you are right now, whatever you're struggling with, just know this: you're not stuck. You're just one habit, one insight, one moment of courage away from momentum. But you have to take the step. You have to keep going, because the people who stay ahead, they're not better than you. They've just chosen to stay committed longer than most. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone you care about. Subscribe, leave a review, and let's keep building this community of thinkers, doers, and relentless learners. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay sharp, stay grounded, and keep rising.